Hi, I'm Tiffany.
Hi, I'm Alexandra.
And we're Subtle Asian Book Club, a book club dedicated to amplifying Asian voices in the literary space.
Yay! We're super excited to be with our guest today, Shen, also known as Elizabeth. So if you can please quickly introduce yourself and what you do.
Yeah, hi, I'm Elizabeth. Thank you so much for having me. I'm an author and I'm an editor. These are some of the books that I've written, with one coming in September.
Yay! Okay, we're so excited. We've actually had Elizabeth on just like the SAB channel before. So if you remember Subtle Asian Book Con, you were on the So You Want to Work in Publishing panel. And I think what's really exciting is that you bring both the perspective of being an author and an editor. So I guess just to start things off, do you mind telling us a little bit about how you fell into both of those careers? Like the chicken and the egg situation, like which came first?
So in college, I majored in English and I didn't want to become a professor. So I went into children's publishing, particularly because I think that children's space is really the most formative time of their lives. And I was doing an internship at Macmillan my senior spring. And when I was there, an editor asked me if I wanted to write a figure skating book.
Oh.
Yeah, and that's what became The Comeback, which was my first book. So it really was kind of like I love figure skating and also I need some extra money. And then it became into all these different things with Maybe It's a Sign in the Queens of New York. But yeah, I've always wanted to write novels as a kid. I just sort of gave that up after time because I was like, oh, that's not really a viable option and I need a real career with job security. So I'm just really grateful that I get to do both.
That's so great. I knew that you started off as an editor and then one of your coworkers asked you if you wanted to write a book, but I didn't realize that was when you were an intern. Is that correct? Or
yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Do you feel like that's normal?
No.
Or I guess I feel like a lot of editors also sometimes publish their own books one day. Is that typically the norm in the publishing industry?
I wouldn't say it's the norm, but it can happen. I feel like if I had to put a percentage on it, maybe 10%. So yeah, it's not a tiny percentage, but it's not like everyone is doing it. I think, of course, if you're an editor or just someone in publishing, you just know a lot about the industry, you know what works, and it just gets your inspiration wheels turning. But for me, it happened very early on in the process, and I was just really lucky to have an editor who somehow believed that I could write this book, even though before The Comeback, I had never written or finished a full piece longer than maybe 50 pages ever in my life. So this was the very first book that I actually wrote in full.
Wait, that's amazing. I guess it also made sense because you were working in the children's department, so you were working on a middle grade and eventually pursued young adult fiction. Did you ever want to kind of switch into adult fiction at all or pursue a different genre?
Yeah, I think that in the past couple of years, I've been really excited about challenging myself to write in different spaces. So I've always wanted to write YA. And so that's what became The Queens of New York. And then I went back to middle grade. I have another YA coming out in September, but that one is much more adult, I would say. It's kind of leaning towards adult crossover. And it's also historical. And I've never written a historical. I don't like history. I'm just not someone who's ever really been interested in reading nonfiction and doing the research. But I really enjoyed that process and I really enjoyed that challenge. So now with every book that I write, my goal is that I continue to challenge myself and continue to push the bounds of what I think I'm capable of. And so I think that might be adult someday. It could be anything. I just am excited about the idea of just expanding what I know and what I think I can do.
That's so exciting. I know we're probably going to ask you this later on what you're working on, but can you please share a little bit, a blurb about your new novel that's coming out? Because I personally love historical and YA. So tell me more.
Yeah. Okay. So it's about a girl who is 17 and she moves from Taiwan to New York City for her final year of high school. And while there, she has some complicated romances. And then in the present day, her granddaughter is at a very rich boarding school, an Exeter type boarding school. and she has to do a history project on her grandma. And she meets with her and she realizes that a lot of what her grandma is telling her is a lie. And so, or actually, almost everything she's telling her is a lie.
Oh my gosh.
So she realizes that, and then she starts digging a little bit deeper and trying to figure out why. And there are some hopefully big twists and turns and blood and death. But it's like a family drama, but it's kind of got these like larger, I don't know what to say, like thriller themes, maybe.
Oh my gosh.
Wait, no, I'm so excited. That sounds so good. Yeah, I have so many thoughts.
It's funny because like originally when we had pitched this podcast and like interview, we were like, oh, we want to talk to you about like your editor life. And now I'm like, wait, I want to talk more about this book, about like writing and your novels. But I guess like maybe this question is like a transition in between, is like, how do you balance both like your day-to-day as like an editor and then also you're writing a lot? So
Yeah, that's a great question. It is hard sometimes. I think I had to really figure out the balance between the two. I think with the comeback, it was a little bit easier. I wrote it primarily during lockdown, so there wasn't like really anything else to do in my free time. But with the Queens of New York, especially the revision process was really hard because it was a hefty and necessary revision process. But then I was like editing, and I was also like trying to be a person, have a life. So there was many a mental breakdown. But then I sort of figured out like, okay, I really need to come up with a plan. So I just like live and die by my notes app. Honestly, I always have a list at any given time. And if I don't, I feel like unmoored. I'm like, what am I doing? So often what I'll do is write out what I'm supposed to be writing like every week. And I try not to make it too intense. Like I don't want to make the expectations for myself far beyond what I can reach, because then I think it just leaves me demoralized and then I'm like frozen. I'm like, okay, I'm not going to do any of this. So I try to be like, okay, little baby steps of writing, maybe every day, every other day, whatever it may be, after my work day, because I'm so tired, like after any work day. And then from there, I usually spend like a good chunk of my weekend writing as well. I also love a good train ride. I think we have all come to know and love the Metro North.
It is the quintessential New Haven / New York rite of passage.
It really is. And like it has horrible service and no Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
So usually I just sleep or write. There's only two options. So I tend to write a lot on the train. And then I feel like that helps me be more efficient at work, because I know that I really have to get done what I need to get done at work, because I don't really have time outside of it to do anything. So really, that is all to say that I feel that I'm motivated by fear a little bit of just like, okay, I have things to get done. I have deadlines. If you don't do it, you're kind of screwed. So you better get it done. I don't think that's healthy, but that's just what I do.
Wait, okay, I have a question then. And like, since you are both, and you said that like not every editor is an author, not every author is an editor.
Yeah.
Do you feel like the process of writing is easier because like you can kind of like switch into the edit? Like, do you find yourself editing your own work as you're going through it? Like, what do you think most authors don't know that editors are thinking, or vice versa?
Oh, that's such a good question. As a writer, I definitely edit as I write, which is a little bit of a slog sometimes. Like, I know authors who are like, oh, I just wrote 10K words today, like in a couple hours. And I was like, that's amazing. I am like writing a paragraph, reading the paragraph, rereading the paragraph. Usually what I do is I do that. And then the next day, when I like go back to write something new, I have to go back to the previous thing that I wrote and like fix it before I can move on. So the plus side of that is I usually have quite clean drafts, but the downside is that it takes me a really long time. But that is definitely my editor brain working. I think that when I'm editing, I hopefully am more like empathetic to the struggle of writing. And then also, I think it really helps me figure out like, okay, how do I best communicate with the author to clarify their vision? Because how I write is not necessarily how everyone writes, and how I edit, varies between author as a result. And so I try to be really mindful in our conversations about, okay, like, let's talk about this character. What was going through your brain when you were working on this? And then try to adhere my feedback to that mindset, if that makes sense, versus just being like, you should do this, this, this.
It's so funny because I feel like it's such a tricky balance to create something new while also edit it, because I feel like they're two very different parts of your brain. At least like for me, maybe my medium isn't necessarily writing, but then it's like whenever I make like videos or something, I'm always like, oh, I want to do this big thing. And then like I think about like how that would actually happen. Like I guess like my question would be like, how do you balance those two parts of your brain?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think something that I inherently do is I'm often inspired by, this sounds so cheesy, but I really am often inspired by my author's work. Like when I'm editing it, it usually gets my own, like just subconsciously my own author brain turning. So then I'm like,
Love that.
yeah, okay, like actually that's giving me an idea. Or like when I'm giving them feedback, I'm like, actually I should be thinking about my own character's motivations. Like what am I
Is there
doing?
like a specific example that comes to mind for you? Like you were reading something about a character and you were like, oh, I don't know. And then you applied it to your own work.
Yeah. Oh, there are so many times it's hard to like pick one, but I often think it actually happens when I'm working on something that's very outside of what I write. So like a middle grade fantasy. I don't tend to write fantasy. I mean, who knows? Maybe I shall challenge myself and write fantasy. But when I'm editing that, I often have to like get into the nitty gritty of like, okay, how does this work? How does this magic happen? What are the consequences of that? And then when I'm just like delving fully into that world, then I start thinking about like, oh, what are the consequences? I don't know. It just gets me excited almost to write. I think that editing is a very creative process inherently. My favorite part is having conversations with the authors and then like brainstorming with them. And I always say, like, if we were at a coffee shop, it would be so crazy because I would just be like, and what if you kill off that person? And like, actually, I think that this guy should be more of a jerk. And this guy, and I just find that to be so fun and so inherently creative. That's not my entire job. There's a lot of my job that isn't that, but it feels really like productive and it gets my author's wheels turning. And so when you're kind of like in that sort of brainstorming mode, you just naturally are like, oh, okay, like now I want to go write something really cool myself. Or at least that's how I feel. So I think thankfully they go hand in hand, at least for me.
I'm kind of backtracking a little bit, but what do you think an editor brings to like the relationship of piecing a book together? Because I think sometimes like for the normal person, they'll read the book and they'll be like, it's this book by this author. And maybe we don't think about like the team that goes behind it. And from the editorial perspective, you're kind of hinting at like you push the author further and things like that. So
Yeah.
from your experience and your words, how would you say that either enhances the writing process or enhances the final product?
Yeah, so it varies obviously for each author, but my goal is to help them figure out their vision and then also to provide that, I wouldn't say like objective, but outside viewpoint into their writing to kind of spot, I don't want to say weak points necessarily, but spot points where the writing could be bolstered. So for example, if someone is writing, let's just go with like a middle grade fantasy since I mentioned it before, but if someone's writing that, obviously, I want to spot points where like things in the fantasy don't make sense, but like the writer is so involved in the whatever that they're like, oh, I didn't even think about that. But then on a larger scale, to me, like the characters are the most important. So making sure that whatever the journey the author has planned for the characters, that they're really coming to life on the page. Because like 9 times out of 10, I'll ask a question about like, oh, why did the character do that? Or like, it was just kind of random that they were like super happy and then really sad, for example. That's a very basic thought, but usually the author's like, oh, well, 55 other things that happened in my mind of like why this character is the way that they are. And I was like, okay, well, let's bring out some of that and figure out where to put that in. So that's sort of like the big picture edit. Sometimes it involves like cutting a ton of scenes for pacing. Sometimes it involves adding stuff. Usually it's cutting though. I feel like
I feel like that's so hard because you're balancing like you need to cut things,
yeah.
but then you're also teasing out, explaining things more so the story is more coherent.
Yes. And also so that the characters feel like whatever is happening to them feels really earned. Like if there's a big climax, if there's like really big stakes, or if you're rooting for them to fall in love even, it's not really about the actual action itself. Like it could be really small. It could be about someone making a friend for the first time, for example, but it has to feel really important to the reader. And to do that, you need to like get all of those steps to get there. And so that's my goal, is to help them reach those steps. And then really that takes like almost a year of editing. Yeah, so we'll do big picture edits and then we'll do smaller edits and smaller. And the goal is that like we're getting smaller and smaller with each round. And then the last one is a line edit where I'm just helping them kind of refine their words. I don't do like a ton of grammar work, some basic grammar, but just like really making sure that what they want to say is on the page, or a lot of the times there'll be like echoes in sentences. So someone will be like, she was waiting, then she waited, then she was waiting again. So I'll be like, oh, just note that in case you want to fix it. And then that's really the last stop before we send it to our team who really works on like grammar and timeline. There's a lot of like, it was Wednesday, but now it's Tuesday. Or like, she was wearing a sweater. Where to go? Yeah. And so that's like our copy editing team who's really honing in on the details. But I'm sort of doing the kind of the in-between step between like big picture and that fine tuning in the line edit.
Mm-hmm. And is it usually that like for each book, there's usually only like one editor, and so it's like pretty like intimate relationship between author and editor, right?
Yeah, it usually is. I am co-editing in some books. More recently, I've been co-editing a couple of books with some editors who like we came up with the idea together, and then we actually presented it and auditioned authors.
Oh,
So that happens occasionally. And so that's been fun because
sorry, just to clarify, do editors like pick the author? Do authors pick the editors? Do you guys just get randomly assigned? Like, how does that work?
Yeah, I was gonna ask that.
Yeah,
too.
I was like, I have no
You
idea.
mean for like projects where like we come up with the idea, or
Well, like everything. Like,
okay. Yeah, so authors have to have an agent, and then usually the agent like pitches us a manuscript, and then we reject it or like decide to move forward. But it's like a whole process. If you decide to move forward, you have to like talk to your editorial team, you have to talk to finance, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But when we're coming up with the ideas ourselves, usually what we do is we pitch it to like a couple of agents or like authors that we like, and we pitch it to their agents. And then we're like, hey, would they mind providing like a sample? And it's just, like a one pager of information that we're giving them. And then we try to make that a foundation for them to jump off of. Like, it's not like, oh, they need to adhere to like every single thing in this proposal, and then we pick the author from there.
Okay, how do you balance that, like having ideas for books that you want to pitch and co-edit or maybe just edit for, and also books that you want to write? Like when you get like ideas like, oh, like there's an idea for a book, question. But then how do you decide between like, do I want to write this book versus I want to audition authors to write this book?
Most of the time I'm like, I don't want to write this book.
You're like, it's gonna be so much work on top of everything else.
Time for this. Yeah. Honestly, I feel like the books that I've written tend to be really personal. Even The Comeback, what I ended up doing was including a really large part of my life inside that book. I'm not like an intense figure skater, but I do figure skate. And then also there was just like a large bullying plot line in that book that I felt was literally just inspired by my life. And same for all my books, same for Foreigners too, which is my book coming out in September. Like I interviewed my grandma for that book over the course of like a year or two. And a lot of what she told me is in that book. It's not obviously like a one-to-one, but they come from a very personal place. So in contrast, if I have an idea that I feel like is so outside of my wheelhouse or just anything related to me, I tend to want to give it to somebody else. So an example of that, which has been announced, so I can talk about it, is I'm sure you guys know Christina Lee.
Yes.
Yeah,
We
she's
love
the
her.
best. I love her. And so we had an idea, and by we I mean me and Alex Wolf, one of my colleagues at Penguin. We really were obsessed with Caroline Calloway. Do you guys know who she is?
Yeah.
Yes. Very vaguely. Sorry. I nodded way too aggressively, but yes.
No, it's okay. Here's the lore. Okay, so she is like a social media influencer scammer, but like one of the early day influencers. And so she used to have these really long, gorgeous captions. And then it turned out that her friend was like writing everything for her and just like doing everything for her. And then after that article about that came out, she kind of capitalized on that. And she came out with like, okay, I could be wrong about the exact facts, but like crazy stuff. Like she had like a workshop that she did where you made like rose water or perfume or something, and it was like $150 a person, and it was just like not like it was just fake. And then she had she had like a book contract with Macmillan that she like never wrote. So that got canceled. So yeah, she is so interesting to me and to Alex. And so we were really interested in people like her who just like we're like, are you really genuine? Because she still acts like that. Like she's like, I'm not a scammer. But we're like, but we know that we have the
It's
evidence.
like an Anna Delvey type of situation.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. It's like you're almost so sincere that we kind of want to believe you, but we know that you're not. And so I really liked that juxtaposition. And so we auditioned writers to write some kind of what we ended up doing was like a John Tucker Must Die situation where it was a girl who's like 17 and she's dating all these men exclusively, and they're from like different schools, they're all really rich, and then you are like, but why is she doing all of this? And then you kind of find out why. And then her best friend dies or is murdered, and she thinks that like maybe one of the boys did it. So we were like, let's just go from there and then figure out what the actual plot is. And so we went to some authors, but really Christina's stood out of the pack. And we were just so honored that she would be willing to like write a sample for us, because she's like an award-winning author and she knocked it out of the park. And so, and like, then we just started coming up with like the twists and turns. You know that meme where it's like with the guy with the strings?
Yes.
That was literally us.
Yes.
We were like, okay, but no, plot C, plot D, oh, twist, turn around, it's this. And so I just had a really fun time doing that. And it wouldn't be something that I really wanted to write, but I loved editing it. Like, it was something where I could like help come up with a twist. But, as you said, Alexandra, the idea of like having these big ideas, but not really wanting to put them into.
You want it to exist.
Yes, I want them to exist, but that was not what I wanted to write. Anyway, that book is called The Hardest Ones to Fool. It is actually a paperback original.
Oh.
It's coming out in August, and it has these like blood red sprayed edges. I'm so excited. It has like a gritty matte cover. Now I'm just getting it into like editing, like publishing fun specs.
I feel like the editor is like perhaps the equivalent of like a director or a producer of a film then. Right?
Yes.
Like
Yeah. Yeah.
Now it's like piecing together for me.
Yeah. Yeah. I would think like, because I was thinking that too when I was asking that question earlier. And I was like, I feel like oftentimes like for films, directors and producers, like directors will produce their own work too. But then like they say a lot of times when I was studying film, like it's really challenging because like it's very different. Like the director is like the creative brain and the producer is like the more like logical, like how are we going to make this happen? But they really go hand in hand and they're super important.
Yeah, I think that's a really good comparison. You feel like you're helping the project come to life in a big way, but you're not necessarily executing the work itself. I guess in this case, maybe the author would be the actor, question mark?
Yeah, I guess so.
Actor, screenwriter.
Yeah.
So many things.
Yeah. And so I just like that part of editing because I don't really have to do all of that. I mean, there's some heavy lifting in editing, but I like that I can just do both things and and also have ideas that, come to life for other people.
Oh, sorry. I did have a question about because you were talking about the project that we're doing with Christina and Lee, the book that's coming out in August. And you were saying that you guys were all you, Alex, and also Christina were brainstorming the plot stuff and everything. Is that, would you say, usually the case for books that you're editing? Or is it usually the author has a very clear idea, and then after, let's say, an initial draft, then the editor can be let's brainstorm some more in different specific ways related to the story?
I would say that it's usually the latter. That we have a creator come to us and have a really big vision. They usually have the book completely drafted as well. While with Christina, of course, since we auditioned her, we bought it on proposal. So she wrote maybe 3 chapters or 2 chapters, not that much. And so she was still ideating in her head, right? Versus someone who's I've spent at least a year writing this book. But it can vary. I think that at this stage of my career, I try to buy things where authors feel they have a pretty good vision, if I'm not doing it the other way around, because I think it's just hard to go back and take something completely apart and put it back together. But sometimes that does happen. I think one thing that I always feel strongly about is that I can always fix a plot. I can always fix characters, but I can't fix how somebody writes. So if I see promise in something, it's usually the writing. Obviously, the plot is important, and I don't buy something unless I'm not intrigued by the plot. But if I feel okay, the plot needs work, but the writing is really excellent, that to me is almost a better sell than the opposite, the other way around.
Okay, I'm going to take us on a little tangent-ish, but if you weren't an editor and also not an author, what job in the publishing industry would you want to do? And then if it were completely not in the publishing industry, what other job would you do?
Ooh, okay. In the publishing industry, I think I'd want to be a designer. My favorite part of some of our in-house stuff is just looking at covers. Okay, part of that is because I don't have to make the cover, but when they're okay, here's some illustrators, here's some sketch options, here are some cover comps, I'm okay, I like that, I don't want that, let's do this and this. It's so fun. I feel I'm in the Devil Wears Prada. So love that. My best friend, shout out to Cassie, is a cover designer, so she's always showing me what she does. Sometimes I'm help girl, and she helps me come up with things. And so if I had that ability, because I literally don't know how to use, I don't even know what they use, Adobe probably.
Question mark. Canva?
Not Canva.
I know.
That's for the people who don't know how to do design, including me.
That's me.
I'm
Yeah,
a
I
huge
love
Canva. Yeah, Cassie was what is Canva? And I was okay. See, that's when you know. So if I knew how to do that, I think it'd be so fun to create something and just figure out how to make a cover or multiple covers look really, really gorgeous and look really distinct. So that's what I would do in the publishing industry. And then if I weren't the other question was,
if you were not working in publishing, in books at all, what do you think you would have ended up doing?
Okay, I think about that a lot. Are we talking realistically or
Maybe both.
Both.
Okay. I'm going to go with in my dreams, I wanted to be a Broadway actress.
Ooh.
But in reality, I actually think that would be really hard because I'm not sure how I could live with the schedule. But it would be fun to be a Broadway actress. This is really specific. Who just does a really big show for a year, makes a lot of money, then goes on to do some spots in some films and some TV shows, and then comes back and does a 3-month run.
It's a very specific vision.
Yeah, I don't being in Broadway, the people who are swings and the ensemble and just constantly doing that. I have so much respect for that because that is exhausting and could not be me. I follow this guy called like JJ Neiman, I think that's his name, on TikTok and Instagram, who like does a day in the life of a Broadway actor, and it makes me so tired just watching his videos. It really does. He has like 14-hour days. So that's my very specific dream. Other than that, more realistically, I think I might want to be a therapist. Yeah. I just like hearing what people have to say and like helping them figure. It's kind of like sometimes I am a therapist to my authors, right? Because they have anxieties and vulnerabilities. And then also like just a lot of their books are related to their identities. So we talk kind of about, you know, some aspects of their personal lives. And so I feel like that marries very well with like therapy, where I would be like just helping them.
How much do you think that your job is like, what percent talking to people, like your authors, and then what percent you're like on a computer?
Oh, it's honestly like 60% on a computer. But I am talking to like other people. So like designers and production and all those. So if we had to say like meetings with people in-house in general or authors, it's probably more like 50-50.
How many projects, I guess, like books, are you usually working on at a given time? And then the second question was, what is your favorite Broadway show?
Ooh, okay. As an editor, you mean how many books?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry. Okay. Follow-up question to that. Because I have no idea how this works. Do you get like a budget and then you have to like figure out how you're spending? It's like,
that'd be crazy though.
right? Or
That's
is it?
so business school if you.
I know. We're at the Yale Business School right now. So I was like, is it like in the business world, it's like you get your accounting budget and then you allocate it as you need to. So
No.
it doesn't sound like that.
No.
Interesting.
You just kind of YOLO. Yeah. Okay. So I acquire about like 10 books a year. And then I would say that like every editor, as you get further up the chain, should be acquiring like more and more. Not like a ton, but they should have a certain expectation that they're acquiring. But like in terms of what those books look like, or you know how much money you're spending, that is really dependent on the book and the interest and what's going on. And it, like we don't have a quota at all. Yeah.
Wow, this is so fun. Because I'm imagining, because sometimes you see things, it's like this book went to auction and then like they're also bidding for it. And I'm assuming you've also been involved in these types of things. So
Yeah.
it's just like a different world.
It is, but there is like a little bit of business mindset because then when you're negotiating, like the editor is the one negotiating with the agent and you have a team supporting you. Like if I have a question for subsidiary rights, like I can't be like, oh yeah, they think this, like I have to go to them. But you do have to like figure out how to negotiate. An agent once told me that I was like the toughest negotiator she worked with. And I was like, am I though? Interesting. It's all over email too, so it's like it's weird. Yeah.
Wait, this is so cool. I feel like before we started talking, I was like, oh, an editor is more like line edits. Like, because that's what I imagine editing.
Yeah.
Like when I edit my own papers, that's what I imagine.
Yeah.
But now I'm like, the editor is like the mastermind.
They really are.
Yeah, honestly, like I feel like that is true because like when I'm writing my books, I do feel like my editors are really guiding me. Like it's honestly crazy that there are parts of The Queens of New York, for example, that I sometimes think have happened in the printed book, but they like got completely cut, or like I think I changed Gia's storyline like completely because of my editor, and for good reason. Like she did amazing. Or like I literally was just thinking the other day in Foreigners that I had to go back and read something because I was like, wait, is that actually what happened with that character, or was that like 3 drafts ago? I don't really remember. So yeah. Anyway, to answer your question about the Broadway show, I have so many favorite Broadway shows. I will try not to go on a tangent for too long about this, but I really like a show where I could write an essay about it after.
Yes. Yes.
So Cabaret, one of my faves. I love that show. Another one is Ragtime, which is actually playing at Lincoln Center this year. So I am planning on seeing it with my mom. Yeah, she actually loves that show too. So, yeah, I'm really excited. By the way, fun fact, anybody under, I think it's like 34, can get $30 tickets to see
Oh,
Ragtime.
nice. I didn't
Oh my gosh, I will be going.
Yeah, so you guys should go. And there's no bad seat at Lincoln Center. So I've sat in the back row before there and feel like I'm getting the full experience.
Yeah, I didn't know that Lincoln Center had like Broadway or like play.
Yeah, they don't do it super often. I've seen 2 shows there, My Fair Lady and The King and I think. But yeah, and also you don't have to go to like Times Square. It's just like a nicer experience. So hot unrelated tip to anything.
Wait, this is great to know. I guess like just to take us back to like the author editor world, what are your favorite parts of both jobs? And then also what are your least favorite parts about both jobs?
Yeah, okay. So my favorite part about being an editor is talking with my authors and like ideating with them. And also seeing their success. Truly, especially, I mean, all my authors are lovely humans, but like when great things happen to really great people, it just makes me so happy. Like one of my authors, it was her debut picture book, Home in a Lunchbox. Yeah. Wait, you guys
I
know that book?
love that book.
Oh, yay!
Yeah. I don't know if I'll include this in the pod, but I'll just let you know. But I recently gave that to my niece because she's like 1 or 2, and I'm like, you will grow up and read this.
That's so cute. Oh my God. Thank you. That's sweet. Yeah, that's her first book. She wrote and illustrated it, and she won the Caldecott honor for that. And so we got to celebrate and go to ALA together, which I'd never been to. And we got to like go to the gala, and she got to go up on stage and get her award. And it was just like, I don't know. I was like crying. I was like, proud mom. Like, she's also like the sweetest human on the planet. She's just so kind and so lovely, and really the type of author that I'd want to work with forever, because she is like, I have a vision, but I'm also really open to edits. I'm open to talking. I want to figure out how this book can be the best it can be. And so, yeah, watching her success has been really lovely, and so many of my other authors as well. But that's just one that was recent. My least favorite part about being an editor is, this is a very specific thing, but we have this contracts portal, and I can say this because I have told many people at this company that I hate it so much. So like when we do a deal, right, we have to input all this stuff on a document, normal, and then we have to input this deal into a computer system that is from like 1985, I swear. And it's not just like, oh, okay, author name, whatever. It's like everything has a code, and you can't like write down the code. You have to scroll through each thing to find the code and then pick the next code. I swear, it's literally the worst. It crashes all the time. I hate it so much.
That's a good pick.
Yeah, I have literally like told I have had mental breakdowns about this. It like takes me 3 hours. It takes everyone like so long. So, I don't really love AI, but if AI wants to fix that, that's what they should be doing. And then my favorite part about being an author is, okay, like when I challenge myself to do something, and then after a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, I'm able to accomplish it and I feel really good about it. Or like when I write a really good paragraph where I'm like, dang, that was big brain thinking. Like there's one part of Foreigners, my next book, at the end that I just like, I don't know, it's like it's like one page that I'm just so proud of. Like I feel like it's low-key the best thing I've ever written in my mind. We'll see if that's true. But I just am really proud of it, and just seeing that come to life after, like, this book is so big. It's like over 400 pages. It's, again, like historical. It's really hard for me to write. So just kind of seeing that come to the finish line was like a really great just realization and joy for me. And then I think any moment where I just feel like really inspired, like when I came up with the twist in Foreigners, actually, you know what? Shout out to history, because I was reading a nonfiction book.
Going from the beginning, it's like, oh, I don't really like history.
I really don't. But if it's like narrative history, I was reading The Making of Asian America.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it was really good. They actually have a young readers edition out. And it's really coincidental because my editor, Jen Ong, like edited the young readers edition. And I like didn't even know that. I was just like reading the adult version. And as I was reading, that's like when I came up with the twist. And I was like in bed and I like was like rolling around in my bed excited because I was like, oh my God, wait. This could work. This could make sense. I want to like call everyone and tell them, but it's like 12 a.m. So that is just like my favorite part about writing. My least favorite part is when I have to revise something and I don't feel motivated to do it or write something and I just don't. So I really have to force myself. I do not consider myself a disciplined person. Okay, let me explain. So I like force myself into discipline. Like I have so many apps. I think I talked about this with you, Tiffany. Like I have an app for my phone that like shuts down all my apps.
Oh my God, me too. Is it Opal?
No, but I've heard of that. I have Forest where it like grows a tree.
Okay, I've used that too.
Yeah. And then I have like self-control on my computer, which is just like a skull. And then you just like can't use like certain websites that you put in.
So crazy, but okay.
Yeah.
I get it.
Yeah, like I literally just shut down my life and like I can't do anything and I would have to like back end code to fix it, which I don't know how to do. So that is how I
This is
write.
discipline, though. The fact that you're doing this is
That's
discipline.
true. But like I'm not just gonna be like, oh la la la, let me write without doing those things. Especially if I'm really unmotivated. So that and fear, to go back to the beginning, is how I write. So sometimes it's really hard. But it is usually worth it.
We've talked a lot about so many different things, but I'm assuming some of the people who listen and watch our podcast or are part of the book club are people who either want to write a book or want to enter the publishing industry in all these different roles that you could do. Is there an advice that you got when you were younger that like really helped you and something that still sticks with you? Or is there something that you wish you had known when you were first getting into the industry?
Okay, so honestly, it was just that this seems like obvious, but you have to really love books to enter the industry. And the reason that I say that is because this is not an industry that initially pays well. You know, it's not giving finance at all. And like when I first started, and thankfully things are better now, but when I first started, I made $33,000 and we had to live in New York City, right? Like there was no remote option. So I just lived in a closet with like a punched out hole, which was considered a window.
I saw your Instagram post about that recently, and then I saw like the photo of the fire and I was like, oh my gosh. Sorry.
What a crazy time. Yeah. Also, my boyfriend at the time broke up with me while my apartment was burning down. So it really was like the most, and I was writing the comeback. So it was like the most insane time.
That was COVID too.
I know.
Yeah.
Wait, like crazy on so many levels. Crazy like the apartment, crazy the pay. Because I do think like
Yeah.
most people don't realize, or most people who go into publishing, like
Yeah.
just it's like the thing. It's like that's what it is. And
Yeah.
I know there's been some push to like increase the pay across
Yeah.
the big five and everything, but it still has a long way to go.
It definitely does. Honestly, the thing that I wish that someone had told me, and I don't think this applies to publishing, I think this applies to a lot of industries. I think for the most part, we do a pretty good job of publishing books by and about marginalized people, which is something that I'm really passionate about and I'm always trying to do. But I always think we have a ways to go. But I think in the industry, we're still working on making the people in-house marginalized people, right? Of kind of increasing that diversity, whatever it may be, inside each publishing house. And I feel like that's true for any industry, right? And then, of course, in this day and age, it's harder to achieve that goal.
Especially when pay is a significant barrier.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Because if you're coming from like an immigrant household and you went to some elite school and then you go tell your parents, okay, yeah, I'm going to go make $48K. Like, they're not necessarily going to be like, Yeah, do that. Thankfully, I had a mom who was like, okay, if that's what you want to do, that's what you want to do. But, not everyone has that privilege as well. And so I think that what I would tell somebody is like, yes, be mindful of that. And just be mindful of like, if you are a person of color, for example, or a marginalized person coming into the industry, I think there's a lot of actually, this goes for really anyone. There's a lot of desire to make change on a large scale. And I do think it comes with a lot of pain and a lot of like corporate pushback when you try to do that. I'm not saying that it's not impossible, but for me, what I have found is doing it on a smaller scale and then working up to bigger scale. Um, one makes a quicker impact, and two feels more mentally fulfilling. Um, and that's something that I really try to keep in mind today is like, okay, I'm really just focusing not on all the goings on around me, but like, what are the books that I'm putting out? Do they feel really impactful? Like, how am I supporting them in house? How is our team supporting them in house? How can I support colleagues of color around me? How can I feel like I'm making a difference with junior team members, all that stuff, rather than like, I'm going to do this like sweeping diversity
Yeah.
initiative.
It's like small actions can make big waves. And sometimes that
Yeah.
is like what you can do as opposed to trying to push a boulder.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah, and it feels like almost harsh to say because like obviously we want to make big change. But I think, I think it's just more reasonable and more actionable. And it feels like, especially if you're making such little money, you don't want to burn out, right? And I think there's a lot of burnout that can happen if you're just striving for like huge things. Like you have to think, what are my next goals for myself? That's another thing is like, I really want people who enter any industry, but especially publishing. It's not an industry where like, okay, 1 year you're this, and then the next year you're immediately getting promoted and becoming this. Like you have to work really hard at getting promoted or advocating for yourself. A lot of people leave like different houses, and that's totally normal. They go to a different job, they leverage. Like all of that is really important. And so realizing what your goals are, realizing what skills you need to learn to get to that point is really important. Like when I was making 33K, I was like, okay, what am I going to do to get to the next step? And then like, what are my goals and how do I want to achieve them and what things do I need to learn? And that really helped me move up a lot faster and feel like more secure for myself.
No, that's definitely really great advice. And I think it resonates for people across a lot of different industries, though, especially like things within the arts where pay is a big barrier and it is something you have to be very mindful of so you don't burn out. So thank you for sharing that with us. And thank you for sharing for the people who might be watching and interested in pursuing a career in this industry. So just to wrap things up a bit, we would love to chat more about like what you're working on next. You kind of teased a little bit about Foreigners. Are there any other projects you want to spotlight, whether it's your own, whether it's your authors?
Yeah, I think that, yes, Foreigners is coming out September 22nd. And beyond that, working on my next middle grade. Nothing truly final right now, but I'm trying to challenge myself to make it really funny. Because I don't feel like I like humor, but I don't feel like that's typically the kind of basis of my books. And I feel like we need more sardonic humor in our lives. And so I wanted to really challenge myself to do that. So I'm working on that right now. And then I just want to shout out some YA paperback originals that we're doing. We're doing a lot of like YA hardcovers as well, but I'm kind of running that program within Penguin Workshop. So the hardest ones to fool is the first one, but then every season, pretty much, we're doing at least one or two a season.
Do you want to explain what the paperback originals are?
Yes. So they're genre fiction titles that are typically under 300 pages. Obviously, they have meat, they have emotion, they have story to them, but they are really like exciting and commercial, and they usually come with like gorgeous specs, and specs mean like for example like soft touch or foil, which you can see on the Queens of New York maybe, or different like aspects of the book that really kind of give it that gifty package, and they're more accessibly priced because they're cheaper than hardcovers. So we have about one a season coming out. We've got like some rom-coms. We have like a practical magic cozy like witchy YA that's really fun. It takes place, I believe, on like an apple orchard.
Wait, I love that.
It's so cute. I'm not editing that. I just oversee it. That's Alex. And then we've got like a an Irish prince who grants a girl 16 wishes.
Wait, these are so fun. These are like
Right?
Disney
Just-
com, like decom, like
Yes. Oh my God,
Gilmore Girls-esque
exactly.
vibes.
The decom vibe is what I want in my life. And then, yeah, we just have like, you know, whirlwind New York City romances. We've just kind of got everything. And the best part is like these editors are really coming up with these ideas, really excited about them. And that makes just me really excited to see them passionate about something. We like to call them candy for our editors and for hopefully our authors, because they feel
they're
like
candy for the readers as well.
yes, exactly. And yeah, we just like have a good time, like being like, okay, we want like pink edges with like little moons or whatever. Yeah, so I'm just really excited and I'm really proud of all the authors and editors working on this program.
Wait, that's amazing. I'm so excited. We will definitely be checking them out. And yeah, it's so exciting that you're spearheading this.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Maybe you can also share where readers or listeners can find you.
Yeah, so you can find me primarily on Instagram at Shen Writes. I'm also theoretically on Blue Sky. And my website is elshenwrites.com. Everything is Shen Writes. So all social media now and to come.
Lovely. We love the consistency. Well, thank you so much for being our first guest.
Oh my gosh, thanks
On
for
the
having me. I'm so
pod.
honored.
And we're so excited to be coming to you live from New Haven, that the three of us were able to be here together and just be in our little
Yay.
Gilmore Girls-esque indoor coziness while it's literally negative 17 degrees outside. So
Yeah.
it means a lot, and we love you, we appreciate you, and we're very excited for all your future works.
Thank you.
Thank you guys for watching.